Alright, I'm just getting the show on a roll. Running a little bit late today. I had to go help someone with something and ended up getting stuck in traffic. What should have been a 5 minute trip turned into a whole 30-minute affair. Uh, so, but I'm here. We got some stuff to talk about. Winter Olympics is going on. I have not been keeping up with that the way I usually do. I need to check in on that. I think I saw that like Norway was winning in the medal overall like medal points or whatever. But yeah, as you can tell from the title of this, the main thing I have to talk about is a viral post that has been getting misconstrued and causing a lot of really dumb arguments. And as someone who is a fan of comic books and a fan of comic book adaptations, I decided to throw my hat into the ring. We also have some episodes. Actually, we don't really have a whole lot to talk about. The new episode of Free Run was pretty good. I liked the bait and switch they did with having Free Run be a slave. Like, oh, we're gonna, at a usual rate, you're gonna be a slave for 30 years or whatever. Uh, it was 30 or 300. I can't remember. Doesn't really make a difference to Free Run. But there's like, oh no, we just really need your magic to find this mountain of silver so that we can pay off your debts and uh, rebuild all this infrastructure. And then a new episode of Jujutsu Kaisen was also just kind of fine. It looked great. Jujutsu Kaisen always looks peak, but the actual plot, like, oh, it's apparently it's like the lamest fight in the entire series is Yuji versus the propeller guy. Like a lot of people were kind of dogging on that fight and kind of making fun of the fact that it did look so good. It's like, oh my god, if they put this much time and effort and money into this dumbass fight, can you just imagine what it's going to be like when they get to the fights that actually matter? I kind of like that about Jujutsu Kaisen. I have the same opinion about JJK season 2, the inverse dude, that Yuji and Megami fight. The guy who's like, oh, if you try to hit him hard, he's invincible. But if you hit it, just do a slight tap, it's a fatal wound. But you have to like kind of figure that out, and that's like not an intuitive thing for a fighter to do. That fight was nonsense. It was meaningless. It did not contribute anything to the plot or the story. It wasn't all that interesting, but by God, the anime did it so good that it's one of my favorite fights from season 2. Because that's just such a neat idea for a fight. And a lot of that going around in the shonen space. New One Piece chapter was kind of peak. We got a look at Loki's devil fruit, still unnamed devil fruit, but it's like a European style dragon. It might be the Nihog. It might just be like the Drake fruit or the Drake fruit. Verdict's still out on the name, but shit's gonna pop off in Elbaf. A lot of people realizing that Oda actually can write women really well. He just likes to horny post. That's sort of Oda is a very competent writer. He's very good at making strong, compelling female characters. He just likes boobies a lot. Kind of distracts from the actual quality of his writing sometimes. I think there's also a new episode of Free Run today, but if there is, or is there a new episode of something today that I just haven't watched, or does it come out tomorrow? I can't remember. I do know that there's not going to be any new episodes this week of any of the shows I watch because of the Olympics. The Olympics are just a really big deal in most parts of the world, and Japanese broadcasting stations like, nope, we're not going to compete with that. We'd rather play reruns. So then, I guess we could talk about the main subject today. So this all started. So the question is, do you have to read comics in order to be a fan of a comic book character? And that, just the basis of that question is very misleading, because what character are we talking about? And what comics are we talking about? And how much are you talking about when it comes to like reading? Like what are the barriers of entry? Because it's an inherently gatekeeping question. Because no matter what your answer is, no matter what side of the debate you fall on, you are gatekeeping people from being fans of a character. When there are lots of ways to get into a character, especially characters who have so many adaptations, like Spider-Man or Superman or Batman, or even like the Avengers, who don't have as many adaptations as the others, but they do still have a pretty fair amount of adaptations over the course of their increasingly long history. But the post was from a account on Twitter called Fiction Talk. He said, "Hot take: you don't have to read a single comic or have a full understanding to be a fan of a character you like." That is true. There are people who are fans of Batman because of the Batman TV shows and movies, which, in some cases, such as Batman the Animated Series, do a better job of creating a compelling character or a cohesive character than a lot of comics. That is just verifiable fact. I'm a huge Captain America fan. Been a huge Captain America fan for the vast majority of my life, since like 2000, 2002. Somewhere in that ballpark is when I read my first Captain America comic. I prefer Captain America the First Avenger over any other iteration of his backstory. And the reason is that it had the benefit of hindsight, of like, this is where a lot of the stuff ends up leading in the comics. So we're not gonna like bait and switch things. We're not gonna play dumb with Bucky. No, we're gonna make Bucky and Cap the same age in order to like get rid of the like weirdness of having sidekicks in World War II. I think I said this before, that, or in a prior live show, that like the whole idea of a sidekick is a very antiquated thing. It's a very like much a product of the time of the 1940s, and that's just like, nowadays they're only in comics because of how old the tradition is. Like, I love Robin. I love most of the Robins. I love most of their storylines. I love all the Batgirls. I love all of their storylines. But most of them are actually in their 20s now. Like, a lot of the Robins have grown up. Like, Dick Grayson's supposed to be in his like late 20s now. Barbara Gordon's in her 30s. Stephanie Brown and Tim Drake are both in their early 20s. Cassandra Cain's a little older than that. Damian Wayne's the only one who's like explicitly still a teenager. Yeah, while I have criticized the book Seduction of the Innocent for being based on a bunch of quack scientists, or quack science with no actual basis in reality, it does raise the very real question of like, in universe, is this irresponsible? And at first, the answer was no. Because at first, the most nefarious thing the Joker did was poison some fish in Gotham Harbor in order to make a quick buck. Or try to con people out of a casino. Or, yes, in his first story, he did poison some people, but it was very like much a personal vendetta. or like an attention thing. But now we live in a post-crisis, post a death in the family, post-Killing Joke world where Batman having a Robin is seen as a inherently irresponsible thing for the character, and it makes him look like a crazy person. And that's not even talking about or mentioning the fact that the idea of a billionaire having a young ward was a very like hip thing in the 30s and 40s that is now just not a thing in reality. Like, it's antiquated, it's old fashioned, it's dated. Which is one of the reasons why, starting in post crisis in the 80s and 90s, they started making it more like a father son dynamic. Like, Bruce Wayne is literally adopting these kids. Like, in the current canon, Tim Drake is not Tim Drake, he is Tim Drake Wayne. Same thing with Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain is Cassandra Cain Wayne. He's like officially adopted these kids, and that's supposed to make it better, and it does, kinda, not really. Doesn't negate the original point that conscripting a 9-year-old into crime fighting in a world with characters like Killer Croc and post-crisis Joker is kind of fucked up. Like, it'd be different if they had powers. Like, Kid Flash doesn't bother people as much because, hey, he's still a speedster. Aquaman with Aqualad. Aqualad is still Atlantean. Almost said Neptunian. Neptunian is that's the Sea Kings in One Piece. No, Superboy is a clone of Superman. He has the Superman's indestructibility. Like, it's cool for him to be a crime fighter. Robin has no power. Robin dresses like a fire hydrant. It is an inherently weird, strange, bizarre concept for him, and this is why, like, post-crisis Batman kind of irritates me a lot of times, is, again, it just worked so much better when the world was inherently silly, when Batman was, like, the most sensible, logical person in the world. Back when Joker was just, like, throwing pies at people, and Riddler had these elaborate death traps, and Penguin was running for mayor of Gotham City, and that those were the biggest stories of Batman's life. Now everyone's like a psychopathic murderer who tortures kids, and it's like, you're kind of fucking things up totally here. You know, you're keeping these old antiquated ideas without generating the world where those old ideas made sense. And that's why a lot of the live action Batman don't have Robin. Because it's really hard to sell that illusion. The only live action Robins we've ever had are, in order of appearance, Burt Ward, who is from the 60s, Chris O'Donnell, who is a grown-ass man. It's kind of weird in Batman Forever how Bruce Wayne has to take care of this clearly 20-something-year-old dude. And then third is, I want to get this actor's name right. I can't remember his name because I only watched like the first few episodes of the show. Brenton Thwaites from the live action Titan show that everybody hates. And in that, he is also very clearly like 18, 19. Like, when did the show start? 2018. Then how old is Brenton Thwaites? (2018). So he would have been 19 years old. Yeah, Brenton Thwaites would have been 19 years old playing Dick Grayson, Robin / Nightwing in the live action show of Titans. Again, they they even dropped the teen out of the name because they cast a bunch of adults to play the characters. Uh, yeah, it's kind of hard. It's kind of bizarre that we've had so many Batman adaptations, and yeah, so few Robins. Even though like Robin is probably just as if not more important to the history of Batman and to the level of success he's had in comic bookdom and in other media like animated stuff. Like we've had plenty of animated Robins. We've had the Batman the Animated Series. We had Super Friends back in the day. Robin was a major player in that. We had obviously we had two Robins in the DC animated universe. We had Dick Grayson and we had Tim Drake. And then Teen Titans, the 2003 show, had their own version of Robin. Then The Batman also had Dick Grayson, as did Batman the Brave and the Bold. And I think Batman the Brave and the Bold used Dick Grayson. I might have used Jason Todd. Might have used both at some point. I wouldn't put it past the show. I haven't seen anything Batman the Brave and the Bold related since season 2, and my memory of it's spotty. Um, and then, of course, Young Justice had uh, technically all 5 Robins, but only 2 of them we get to see as Robin. Like, it has Dick Grayson in season 1 as Robin. Season 2, 5-year time skip. Jason Todd's already dead, and Tim Drake is the new Robin. Like, he's fresh in the suit. Then, of course, through like season 3 and 4, we get introduced to like the Red Hooded Ninja, who is very clearly supposed to be set up for Jason Todd. Clearly, if Young Justice gets a season 5, it'll have like a Red Hood storyline. And then within those, at least season 4, I know they have baby Damian Wayne in some scenes, like Damian Wayne as a baby. And then, of course, you also have Stephanie Brown in the cast as well as spoiler, not in the Robin outfit and not being very relevant either. Uh, so yeah, but you do technically have all of them in Young Justice. Just only 2 of them get to do stuff as Robin on screen over the course of that show. So far. Maybe season 5 will have like a 10-year time skip and Jason Todd's already uh fully incorporated the Red Hood and the Outlaws and Damian Wayne is Robin. I also wouldn't put it past that show. Uh but the next point I want to get into is that a lot of people take the internet for granted. You have to remember the idea of having internet forums that discuss comic books is only like probably 26, 27 years old at this point. Maybe it might be pushing 30. But that's still a lot less time than the 60 years in between a lot of these characters getting made and the dot-com boom of the late 90s. And the idea of having like a recommended rating list that like cuts out all the unimportant issues and are just like key issues and popular storylines that people like and create like a cohesive idea of the character. That's all stuff from the past like 5 years. That stuff did not exist 10 years ago. I know because I tried it. I tried getting into actually it might have existed 10 years ago. 20 years ago it definitely didn't because 20 years ago I tried to get into Marvel Comics, like the wider Marvel Comics universe. I was sick of DC. I hated all the character assassination they did in Infinite Crisis, or more so like Infinite Crisis 1 year later, like the Cassandra Cain being a villain and all that stuff. Uh, and yeah, I dropped DC entirely. I stopped reading DC comics for a long time, and I went full hog into Marvel. Like I had, like I knew the X-Men, I knew Spider-Man. I had a couple Captain America comics. I had a couple. I actually No, this was around the time that I first got one of the Walt Simonson Thor comics. Was around the same time. Uh, and I went full balls deep into Marvel, just jumping right into the deep end, reading all the stuff that was coming out at that time, which that would have been like Ed Brubaker's Captain America, Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers, the tail end of J. Michael Straczynski's Spider Man, heading into the Dan Slott run, the Iron Man becoming more important. Uh, I think Grant Morrison was writing X-Men at the time. Like, I was jumping right into the deep end, trying to catch up with all the stories while like using the internet to try to parse through like what these characters' histories were. I got like a Marvel encyclopedia from the library that had like a breakdown of like, here's every character that's been relevant in Marvel comics. Uh, Now I played Ultimate Alliance that introduced me to like that was like a crash course in Marvel Comics history. That's actually how I first found out about Deadpool. My first exposure to Deadpool was Marvel's Ultimate Alliance on PlayStation 2. Uh and so like I didn't have a lot of money to spend on comics. And so like I was reading those through my library, through my local library, not even buying the books while I was buying some Silver and Bronze Age back issues from a local comic book shop. I was living in Springfield, Missouri at the time. And this is when I had like the Walt Simonson Thor, the Ballad of Beta Ray Bill. This is when I first read a Captain America, or most of. I couldn't find a couple. There was a couple issues I was missing of Captain America: The Secret Empire from 1974, or yeah, 74. Um, there was a Fantastic Four book I had. Um, I think I had like a reprint or found a collection, like a trade or something that had like Giant Size X-Men Annual Number 1, which is not the introduction of Wolverine, but it was his introduction into the X-Men. Like, I had to brute force my way through that and try to like piece together what was going on just through my own logic, and I ended up filling the holes with ideas and thoughts and stuff because like I was missing some context. I didn't have every issue of a lot of this stuff, and I had to like try to fill in the blanks using my own logic. I didn't have consistent internet access at the time, like the way you would nowadays. Like, you didn't, like, in 2006 you weren't able to just go up to literally any fast food restaurant and bum off their Wi-Fi with your cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have cell phones at the time. I had a Nokia brick phone. That was my first phone in 2007. And it had like the green like Game Boy looking ass screen. Like, that was the first closest thing I had to a cell phone, and it wasn't until 2007. I remember the former President Obama talks about this, that when he was running for president, he was like the only politician who had a BlackBerry. And he kept that BlackBerry long after it had been outmoded by every other smartphone. Like, everyone's got smartphones now. And nowadays, you also have apps like Marvel Unlimited or Kindle Unlimited. I'm currently rereading Batman the Long Halloween through Kindle Unlimited. It's fucking peak, by the way. I love it. Great story. Great detective story. Um, but a lot of these comic book readers, a lot of these young comic book readers, I'm making myself sound fucking ancient. I'm not. I turned 33 this year. I'm not even that old. But so many of these people who are like 25 and younger just don't understand how difficult it was to actually keep up with comic books for a long time. Like, Marvel and DC had very different approaches. DC always liked to throw you into the deep end. Like, you don't know who this character is? Fuck it. It sucks to be you. Marvel was always much more on top of things with like editorial, with like putting little asterisks and being like, this character debuted in Spider-Man issue 63. Uh, This is a reference to a plotline that happened in the Avengers Annual Number 1. Uh, you can see this character's origin story in Tales of Suspense, episode 60 or issue 67. If you need a recap, it would always like direct you towards things, and the editors were always kind of on top of things until they stopped in the late 2000s. They kind of gave up on that, and it kind of sucks because Marvel. One of their advantages was treating every comic as if it was someone's first. You can't control someone's gateway into a comic book or into a character. The first comic book or first Thor, I should say, I love Thor. First Thor comic I ever read was by Walt Simonson, and it was part of the Ballad of Beta Ray Bill. It was actually the second issue of that storyline. So literally, it had Thor and Beta Ray Bill like hands on the hammer, and it had the inscription like he who wields this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. And then the comic book opens up. The first page is Dr. Donald Blake, Thor's alter ego, crying into the raining sky, asking for Odin to grant him like salvation. And then Nick Fury shows up. Who's Nick Fury? Well, hopefully you were already familiar with Nick Fury by that point. And yeah, it does give it like a, well, as director of S.H.I.E.L.D., I got this and this to say. And so it was very like reader friendly, which makes like binging old Marvel comics a bit tedious. Like you can affect it if you are binge reading Marvel comics from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you can effectively skip the first page of each issue. Because it's just a recap of everything that's been going on up to that point, or all the relevant information you need to know in order to continue the story from here. Again, very reader friendly, a little superfluous for nowadays. But I always appreciated that about Marvel, and it always made Marvel a little more intriguing, as was the whole like interconnectedness. DC, they had a really big problem for a long time, and they still have this problem sometimes of different teams not communicating with each other. Very infamously, Denny O'Neil in the 1970s, he was given the job of writing Green Lantern. He was trying to make Green Lantern relevant, so he decided to pair Green Lantern up with Green Arrow because no one was using Green Arrow at that time. And then there was talk about like all these social issues, and he wanted to tackle the drug problem. So he had Green Lantern and Green Arrow discover that Green Arrow sidekick, Speedy, Roy Harper, was hooked on heroin. It's a great issue. It's actually one of the few issues where Green Lantern got to be on the high horse a little bit and got to come off as being the more sensible of the two. Like that book probably is why that series has such a perception or reputation of being fair and balanced. It is not fair and balanced. 99% of the time, the book unequivocally sides with Oliver Queen. But in that issue, the best issue is sided with Hal Jordan. But you want to know something? Denny O'Neil did not talk to the guy who was writing Teen Titans. He did not communicate his plans with the Teen Titans guy. Roy Harper was a main character on the Teen Titans book. So the Teen Titans guy had to discover this massive revelation about Roy Harper right alongside everyone else, and then had to be like, well, shit, now I have to actually incorporate that, or now I feel obligated to incorporate that into my book because Green Lantern's selling better than me, so people are going to come towards Teen Titans because of Roy Harper's appearance in Green Lantern, and I know that because that's what Marvel does. That's how Marvel does their business. The character is failing, stick Spider-Man on the cover. If a character is not being culturally relevant, have them join the X-Men. The character isn't selling well and nothing else is working, stick them on the Avengers. That's how Marvel does their business. That's how Marvel was able to maintain so many books in the top 10 sales charts for so long. Just the in case of emergency, break glass, and behind the glass is just Spider-Man team up. Spider-Man is considered like such a loner, and the reason why he wasn't on a team for a very long time, like he wasn't an Avenger. Like Spider-Man did not join the Avengers until 2005. And the reason is he didn't fucking need them. Spider-Man sold just fine on his own. He didn't need help from any team. Everyone else needed his help. Captain America, falling behind in sales. Give an issue where Spider-Man and the Falcon are beefing for some reason. That's a real issue, by the way. That really happened, and it's kind of great. Um, but yeah, like comics aren't always the gateway to these characters either. These are parts of cultural mythology. Earlier today, I was actually listening to an episode of The Adventures of Superman, the radio show from 1940, which I kind of already knew was responsible for the creation of kryptonite, because that's just one of those pieces of trivia that you say at parties or whatever. Like, hey, did you know that kryptonite isn't originally from the comics? Uh, like I haven't actually listened to the episode that introduced kryptonite. I just know that from like, here's some top 10 fun Superman comic book facts. Number 10, kryptonite did not originate from the comic books. It's from the Adventures of Superman radio show. Uh, Number 9, Krypton was not always a crystal prog rock album. That's an invention of Richard Donner's movies. But these other mediums, which are in a lot of cases more popular mediums than comic books, can be gateways to those characters as well. Uh, Not only did Kryptonite originate from the Adventures of Superman radio show, but so did Jimmy Olsen and Perry White, two mainstays of Superman's supporting cast. They were not originally comic book characters. If you're a fan of them and you've only read comics with them, are you really a fan of them? Because that's not the source material. The comics aren't the source material in those cases. Get a little ahead of myself, because I have a lot of other examples too. But yeah, you got the Adventures of Superman radio show. The Adam West Batman show was really popular. The Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby Hulk TV show was extremely popular. You have the current MCU movies, which are making way more money than any of the comic books ever have. Batman the Animated Series, the Tim Burton Batman movies, Young Justice, the 2003 Teen Titans show, Justice League Unlimited, Spider-Man the Animated Series, X-Men the Animated Series, X-Men Evolution, Spectacular Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, which sucks, but I just want to throw that out there just as an example. Like, someone's first exposure to Spider-Man could very well be the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show from the late 2000s. You can't control that. Video games. Part of the reason why this debate happened is because certain characters from Marvel Rivals are experiencing a level of success and popularity that they never had before. One of the characters in Marvel Rivals is Luna Snow. Luna Snow is getting really popular. Luna Snow was not a comic book character. Luna Snow was invented for a fighting game back in just a couple years ago, like 2018, 2019. Like, not everything in comics comes from comics. Harley Quinn, very famously, made her debut in Batman the Animated Series, had a couple comics that tied in with Batman the Animated Series after that, but then didn't make her main Earth 1 appearance in the DC Universe until the No Man's Land saga. The idea of Krypton being this crystal-based technology comes from the Richard Donner movies. Kryptonite comes from the radio show. General Zod, as a main villain of Superman, is basically movie exclusive. He was a one-off villain, and I think it was like 1969. He was a one-off villain in a Superman comic once, had one storyline, and was never used again. But then Richard Donner was sitting writing the script for his Superman duology, Like, we need a big bad. How about an evil Kryptonian? What's an evil Kryptonian? General Zod. He exists. Let's use him. And the look of General Zod that everyone thinks of, completely made for the movie. In fact, I'm gonna actually try to find a picture here. General Zod original comic appearance. 1961 is what it was. I think this is him. This. This is what General Zod looked like in 1961. No facial hair. He's wearing a hat. He looks like a typical Russian military guy. The only thing that could link him to Superman is that this is the same shape as Superman's crest. So the image of Zod that you have in your heads, that's not comic accurate. That's not what he looked like in the comics, not at first. But then after that movie came out and made a bunch of money, suddenly, basically overnight, he started looking like this. This is what he looks like in the modern comic books. This is him from a 2018 comic book. And if I remember correctly from my wiki dives, General Zod basically didn't appear in a comic book at all between 1961 and 2005. There was no General Zod in the comic books. There was no post-crisis General Zod until, I don't know if there ever was, because I'm wondering if he even made a post-crisis appearance pre-New 52. So I know there's that a Kryptonian invasion storyline, but I'm pretty sure that was post New 52. Might be wrong. Again, he was kind of considered a one-off villain. He wasn't a mainstay of Superman's rogues galleries. He's not in Superman the Animated Series. The closest thing they have is a character by the name of Jaxum, I think, who is basically Zod in everything but name. But yeah, do you have to watch Batman the Animated Series to be a fan of Harley Quinn? Do you need to watch or listen to the Adventures of Superman radio show in order to be a fan of Jimmy Olsen? Do you need to watch the Richard Donner Superman movie in order to be a fan of General Zod? Or the current interpretation of General Zod? Do you need to watch Batman the Animated Series to be a fan of Mr. Freeze? Because Mr. Freeze in the comics is a completely different character than the version of Batman the Animated Series, and the version of Batman the Animated Series then became the post-crisis version of Mr. Freeze. They just ripped his backstory off from the cartoon, put it in the comics, and called it a day. What versions are you talking about? What is the source material? Synergy can throw this off too. Because comics aren't the most popular art form, and even comics know this. The movies influenced the comics in to the same degree that comics influenced the movies. Blade is a great example of this. Blade in the comics was just a dude. Just a vampire hunting dude. He was introduced in the Tomb of Dracula in the 1970s as just one of many vampire hunters that Dracula would face. But he was novel because he was black and had a pretty cool attitude. So he got kind of popular, but he never popular enough to have his own solo series. He never had a solo series. In the 90s, vampires were really popular. He had Lost Boys and Interview with the Vampire, Bram Stoker's Dracula. There was also a popular Dracula movie in the 2000s, but that's not as relevant because we're talking pre 1998 here. Um, Studio, I think it was New Line Cinema, wanted to make an action packed vampire movie. They found out, like, hey, we technically have the rights to Blade, a character from Marvel Comics who hunts vampires. Let's make a movie of him. Oh, he's kind of lame. Let's completely overhaul the character, make him a daywalker, give him vampire powers. Do like an interesting thing. Let's create a mentor character named Whistler for him. Whistler was invented for the Blade movie. He was not a comic book character. The Blade movie is basically the source material for comic book Blade now. Even though he technically debuted in the comics first, after the Blade movie came out, they altered Blade. Like, they took Blade, the comic book character, and they turned him into the movie version of the character effectively. Gave him all the movie powers and everything. But even within, oh, and there's other examples, like more obvious examples. During the J. Michael Straczynski run of Spider-Man, he gave Spider-Man organic webbing because of the movies. Um, I know the X-Men in the comics got darker uniforms in the 2000s, but I'm not sure if that was directly inspired by the movies or if it was just modernizing them. Because Batman also went through a costume change in the late 90s, early 2000s, where, for a long time he had the blue cape and cowl. Had the blue cape and cowl. That was the standard Batman look. Then the 1989 movie happened, and suddenly he's all black leather. But the comics, they kind of maintained the blue cape and cowl with the gray suit for a long time until the 90s with digital painting, with computer aided painting. They were able to actually like make his suit black, and they made it all black for a while, and then they made the more iconic like black and gray suit that we kind of still have to this day. But that was all aided because of color, like a digital painting. Uh, and yes, Batman did originally have a black cape and cowl. And the reason why they changed it was because printing. It was easier to print the blue. So that was like a technological thing. And it was a technological thing that brought the black back. Uh, But Ultimate X-Men. Ultimate X-Men have the costumes of the movies. Uh yeah, Ultimate X-Men. I don't think if there's any other like really egregious examples of synergy like that. Oh, I mean, I guess the entire existence of Harley Quinn. Oh, the wedding. Peter and MJ's wedding was an act of synergy because in the 80s, Stan Lee got a gig writing Spider-Man comic strips for a newspaper, and it was explicitly supposed to be in a separate universe. So Stan Lee could do whatever he wants, and it didn't have to adhere to what Marvel had going on with the character, and Marvel didn't have to adhere to what Stan Lee had going on. But then Stan Lee had Peter and MJ get married in that comic strip, and people loved that. The comic strip was becoming more popular than the actual comics. And keep in mind, like, Spider-Man was not on the downturn at this time. Spider-Man was at his peak popularity at this time. It was Dave Michelinie's run was going on at this time. It was, we were entering like the Venom saga of Spider-Man at this time. So Marvel freaks out, like, hey, we need to like try to cash in on this way. People are just expecting Peter and MJ to get married now, and they're kind of throwing a hissy fit over them not being married. So let's make them married. A decision that everyone in editorial would hate from then on out. No, Spider-Man is an interesting person to bring up in this because for the past 20 years, Peter Parker has been objectively a worse character and a worse person than pretty much any of his adaptations. Because mainline 616 universe Spider-Man is the Spider-Man who willingly sold his marriage to Mephisto. Like, even it doesn't matter that he doesn't remember doing that. It doesn't matter that uh, things have happened to retcon that and create like different universe. We had a um, we have Brand New Day. Brand New Day tried to rectify the situation. Uh, Even if Peter and MJ do end up getting back together and getting married again, that doesn't change the fact that nothing is sacred in the 616 universe. It doesn't matter if they get married. There's always the possibility that they'll undo it again. You know, they broke like a sacred trust when they did that, when they had Peter do something so morally reprehensible as striking a deal with freaking Mephisto. So 616 Spider-Man is damaged goods, and it's no wonder that the most successful 616 Spider-Man storyline since then is the one where Peter is dead and his body is being controlled by Dr. Octopus. Superior Spider-Man is the most successful post One More Day Spider-Man story to this date. So, what about the people who are 20 years old, who are kids back in 2007, 2008, who are in their 20s now, and their first exposure to Spider-Man in the comics was the Dan Slott run? Are they any less worthy of being a fan than people who were uh, got into it through the comics of the 80s and 90s? Are they any less worthy of being called fans than people who have been reading Spider-Man since the 60s or got into it through reprints of the 60s books? What counts as the original run? Are you a Batman fan if you haven't read Bob Kane and Bill Finger's run? Are you a Batman fan if you haven't read Denny O'Neil's run? What if you've only read Denny O'Neil's run? Are you still a Batman fan? Like, I make the argument that a lot of people got into Batman through the late 80s onslaught of excellent work from Batman Year One, Long Halloween, The Dark Knight Returns. Kind of overrated, but still, no, still good. No, I still like it. I'll defend it. I'll defend a lot of Frank Miller's choices in that. I'll criticize a lot of his other choices. Like, I don't think I don't see a well written version of Superman coming to the blows like that. There's a lot I don't like about Dark Knight Returns, but there's a lot to like too. It's very good. Um, very well executed, I should say. A lot of bad ideas executed perfectly well. I think that's Dark Knight Returns in a good nutshot. Then you got a lot of other stories that aren't as popular. Batman the Cult is brilliant. Haven't actually read Batman Ego, but I heard Batman Ego is very good. It's on my list. Um, Death in the Family, Killing Joke. I don't like the Killing Joke, but a lot of people do. I understand. I get it. Great art. And 10 Nights of... I have a soft spot for 10 Nights of the Beast. I think 10 Nights of the Beast is a better Nightfall than Nightfall. Like, it made me really... Like, when I actually sat down and read that, I was like, this is the introduction of KG Bistro? This dude's a monster. How is this dude not an A-list villain? Like, why is he the one that always gets jobbed out nowadays? He's fucking unstoppable in that story. Like, Batman has to basically break his rules in order to just get away. But yeah, 10 Nights of the Beast is a really good story. And a lot of people got into Batman through that era of Batman comics. But that's not the source material. That is just another adaptation, another iteration. It just so happens to be in the same medium. Like, if you... What's a movie? King Kong. Are you a fan of King Kong, even if you've only watched the 2005 Peter Jackson version? Or do you have to watch the 1933 version? What if you watch the 1933 version and end up enjoying the 2005 version more? Are you still considered a fan? And what are you a fan of? Are you a fan of King Kong as a concept? Or are you a fan of the storyline of King Kong? Because the storyline in both movies is effectively the same. It strikes on all the same themes, a lot of the same character arcs. The main difference between the two is Jack Driscoll. Jack Driscoll in the original movie is a sailor, and in the 2005 remake, he's a writer. What about the Star Wars? What if a Star Wars fan gets into Star Wars through the Clone Wars TV show? What about anime fans who get into anime through the anime and don't want to read the manga because they prefer the visual medium of animation over the print medium of manga? Like, I'm a huge Freerin fan. I haven't watched or I haven't read the manga. Freerin is one of my favorite shows of all time. I haven't read the manga because a lot of what I like about Freerin are things that aren't going to be in the manga. I love the soundtrack. I love the voice acting. I love the pacing. I love the use of color and direction and editing and just the visual storytelling, the visual like filmmaking of Freerin is a big reason why I think Freerin is a masterpiece. The story's great. I'm sure I would love the manga if I gave it a shot. But I haven't felt compelled to because I'm not like chomping at the bit and being like, oh man, I gotta know what happens next. That tends to be why I get into manga. It's like, oh man, the anime is over and there's still so many answers or so many questions. I don't need sleep. I need answers. That's why I read through quintessential quintuplets in like a 27-hour period. I was up for like 28 hours straight, binge reading quintessential quintuplets. One Piece, same thing. Like there came a point where it's like, oh man, I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up. I gotta know what's gonna happen. I gotta like avoid spoilers. Gotta get caught up before something really cool or important gets spoiled for me again. Uh, but yeah, there's a lot of people who only watch the anime. There's a lot of people who only, and this creates a different problem because I feel like manga fans are totally fine if you get into something through the anime, because anime adaptations of manga tend to be more accurate than comic book adaptations. And I talked about this a few weeks ago when I talked about like manga versus Marvel and DC, where a big part of manga success is that it's written with animation in mind. Like going all the way back to the 50s with Astro Boy. Astro Boy, the manga, was written with the possibility of getting animated in mind. Marvel comics and DC comics were not written in that way ever. Manga tend to stand alone, even if they have crossover specials or whatever, like Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump crossing over. Doesn't matter. Dragon Ball is a self-isolated universe. It's one continuous story. One Piece is a self-isolated universe. It's one continuous story. Naruto is an isolated universe. It's a one self-contained story. If you are reading, uh, I'll keep using Spider-Man. If you are reading Spider-Man, then Spider-Man's ubiquitous enough to where you could skip Amazing Fantasy. Like, you could skip his anthology series and jump right into Spider-Man #1 and not really miss anything. You know through cultural osmosis Spider-Man's deal. Great power comes great responsibility. Bit by a radioactive spider. Has spider powers. Uncle Ben died. He blames himself. Now he's a superhero. Everyone knows that. Spider-Man #1 has the Fantastic Four. If you want to know everything that's going on, you better read Fantastic Four. Spider-Man frequently teams up with Daredevil. Gotta read Daredevil. Most important, most like famous Daredevil story features Captain America. Daredevil Born Again quite famously has a really great send up of Captain America. Now you gotta read Captain America. No studio is going to pay the money to do that level of intricacy and that level of connectivity with multiple different characters like that. And we have two examples of, or three examples of them like trying, but not really. Justice League Unlimited was like, here's the broader DC universe. We're doing everything. But we're still focusing on these 7 characters, and then everyone else is just going to get their episode to shine. So we're gonna have a Captain Marvel / Shazam episode. We're gonna have an episode where Green Arrow gets his dues. We're gonna have an episode where Elongated Man gets his dues. We're gonna have an episode where Black Canary gets to save the day. An episode where the Superman gets taken out of commission, has to be saved by like a bunch of D-listers like Vigilante and Stargirl. We're gonna do all that stuff. We're gonna have a Booster Gold episode. We're gonna have the Aquaman episode, the Captain Atom episode, and that was the way Justice League Unlimited was structured. Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I think, does a better job at introducing like the wider world of Marvel, but it still focuses on the Avengers: Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Ant-Man, Wasp, Black Panther, Hawkeye. Like that's your core group. But we're gonna have guest stars. We're gonna have an episode where Spider-Man gets to show up. We're gonna have an episode where we're gonna tip our hat to the new Avengers and have Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Luke Cage team up with Captain America on a job. We're gonna reference the Fantastic Four. We're gonna have an episode where the Avengers team up with Fantastic Four to fight Doctor Doom. But we're not gonna show the full stories of those. We're not gonna like jump back and forth between having, Fantastic Four plot lines and Avengers plot lines. Like, no, it's still focused very much on the Avengers. And then same thing with Young Justice, which I think does the worst job at incorporating this. Because it is the most ambitious. Young Justice is basically like, here's the wider DC universe told from the perspective of all the sidekicks. And it tried at first to have like, here's the core group. It's Dick Grayson, Roy Harper, Wally West, Artemis Croc, Calderon. That's your core group. But then by the end of season 1, it's like, okay, also here's Zatanna. And also here's Rocket. But then when season 2 starts off, it's like, Wally and Artemis are retired. Zatanna and Rocket are members of the Justice League now. Dick Grayson is Nightwing. Superboy and Miss Martian are broken up. Miss Martian's dating Lagoon Boy. He's on the team now. Tim Drake is the new Robin. You have a Wonder Girl with Cassandra Sandsmark. You have the Blue Beetle is a main character now. Blue Beetle, the season is going to revolve around Blue Beetle, a character who was not in season 1, not mentioned in season 1, who is a follow-up of Ted Cord, who is also not mentioned in season 1, doesn't show up in season 1. He's a brand new character, and he's also already dead. He died in the 5-year time skip. And we're going to have Wally and Artemis show up every so often. And Calderon's a villain, but not really. It's all a plot. But we're not gonna have Wally West involved in any of the action until the very end because if we need a speedster, we have Bart Allen now. Bart Allen's in the show. Impulse is in the show. We have the actual original Young Justice cast in the Young Justice show for the first time. It's Tim Drake, Cassandra Sandsmark, Connor Kent, and Bart Allen. That's Young Justice of the comics right there. Those 4 characters. That's the core. They're not going to interact with each other in season 2 though, because we got way too many other things going on. We got Mongol, we got Lobo, we got the alien invasions, we got the Black Beetle, we got the Green Beetle, we got the espionage stuff with Deathstroke, we got the plot line with the Calderon infiltrating Black Manta with the help of Artemis, who's Tigra now, and we got the Roy Harper. Roy Harper found out he's a clone. He's trying to save the other Roy Harper, who is missing an arm. He's Arsenal now. He wants to kill Lex Luthor. There's a whole plot line with that. They try to do so much, and the pacing is so all over the place, and there's so much cast bloat that like nothing is able to get the focus it deserves. No, back to like the concept like original versus definitive runs. Like, effectively, what is the difference between is it better to get into Spider-Man through Spectacular Spider-Man, which I think is a masterpiece of a show, I think it's the best adaptation of Spider-Man we're ever going to get. Uh, is it okay to be a fan of Spider-Man if you've only watched Spectacular Spider-Man? Are people who got into Spider-Man through Spectacular Spider-Man any less worthy of being a fan than people who got into Spider-Man comics through the comics because of Dan Slott or J. Michael Straczynski? There's a whole generation of people now who have never seen a good Spider-Man story published in their lifetime in the comics. Because if you ask me, Spider-Man hasn't had a genuinely good comic since 1990. I haven't even lived to see a genuinely good Spider-Man story. When I was a kid growing up, it was all about the Clone Saga, and the Clone Saga sucked. Now, you can't control someone's first exposure like that. And then, not only are we dealing with like the interconnectivity with other characters, you're also dealing with the interconnectivity of characters that have multiple books. Spider-Man, again. If you're okay, so you're getting into Spider-Man. You want to get like you might have seen the cartoon, you might have seen the movies, and are like, you know what? I want to see the source material. I want to get into Spider-Man. Where should I start? Okay, everyone really likes Amazing Spider-Man, so I'm going to jump into Amazing Spider-Man. You have to be coached through this, by the way, and that's something that a lot of people aren't even going to think to do. They're going to jump right into Amazing Spider-Man, and they're going to have a good time because Amazing Spider-Man is great. Amazing Spider-Man was an incredible run. Every issue by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and then followed up by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. It's all good. It's all good stuff. Even the duds are like still fun. And again, it's the 70s, and Jerry Conway. It's not as good, but it's still fine. A lot of really cool, important stuff, like the introduction of Punisher and Death of Gwen Stacy. And you still got a lot of decent stuff in there. But then you get to the 80s, and suddenly, if you want to keep with Spider-Man, you want to keep up with the major developments in Spider-Man's life, you gotta read Secret Wars. Because that's the introduction of the black suit. You gotta start reading Spectacular Spider-Man. You have to start jumping back and forth between reading like 3 or 4 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, then 3 or 4 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man. Because Spectacular Spider-Man has a lot of important stuff, like the death of Gene Wolfe and Kraven's Last Hunt. Then by the end of the 80s, you also have Web of Spider-Man. And by the 90s, you have Adjectiveless Spider-Man by initially by Todd McFarlane. So if you just stick to the Amazing Spider-Man, you're missing out on all these comics, and also, you're going to miss 75% of the Clone Saga. Because the Clone Saga plays out over the course of all the books. Same thing with other Spider-Man events from the 90s, like Maximum Carnage was also played out over the course of all the books. But Clone Saga was like much more important and much more indicative of what the future of reading Spider-Man was going to be like, and that it was going to suck, and editorial was going to be fighting with itself every step of the way. But because of all of this stuff, and because collecting all these comics is difficult, it is expensive. Like, there's not a whole lot of good reprints of old Marvel books. The closest thing, you got the Masterworks collection, which I love the Masterworks collection. I prefer it over the Epics collection. Like, the Epics collection has been around longer, but the Epics collection was like, here's some definitive storylines, like Kraven's Last Hunt, Captain America's Secret Empire, Daredevil Born Again, the death of Elektra, the death of Gwen Stacy, the Days of Future Past for X-Men, Dark Phoenix Saga for X-Men. But they're missing a lot of the in-between, but they're missing a lot of the in-between issues. They're missing a lot of the context. You're not getting them necessarily in order. Like, quick pause, because I want to grab this off my shelf. It's not from the Epic Collection or the Masterworks. It's part of the Marvel Premiere Collection. This is my copy of Daredevil Born Again. And it does have the entirety of the Born Again storyline, or at least what is considered the Daredevil Born Again storyline. So it starts off with Daredevil 227, Apocalypse, episode or issue where Kingpin discovers Matt Murdock's secret identity. It goes all the way through the issue that is actually called Born Again. The entire idea of a storyline having like a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, that actually comes from a Batman 10 Nights of the Beast. You're not getting one 10 Nights of the Beast reference, you're getting two in this stream. That was the first one that had like 10 Nights of the Beast part 1, 10 Nights of the Beast part 2, 10 Nights of the Beast part 3. Before that, it was like... is there like a table of contents in here? Yeah. Daredevil, issue 227, Apocalypse. Then you had Daredevil 228, Purgatory. Daredevil 229, Pariah. Daredevil 230, Born Again. Like, Born Again was just the name of a single issue that is smack dab in the middle of this storyline. Then you have issue 231, Saved. Then issue 232, God and Country. This is when Nuke shows up to try to... actually probably my favorite issue of this storyline, because this is when Captain America shows up, and I'm a huge Captain America fanboy. Daredevil 233, Armageddon. This is the issue that has the extremely famous like Captain America panel, like, I'm loyal to nothing, General, except the dream. So yeah, that was from 234, 233, 234. 233. And I'm bringing that up, 230, so 233. So that's every issue from 227 to 233. That's 7 issues. There's 8 issues in this collection. After Born Again, it rewinds to Daredevil 226. Warriors, which has nothing to do with the Born Again series. It takes place before the Born Again storyline. Nothing to do with Born Again. The only reason why it's in here is because it is a standalone story that features Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli collaborating. And it's I guess it's the first time that Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli collaborated. But it's also written by Denny O'Neil. So a lot of Denny O'Neil in this household. But it is just a random issue where he fights the Gladiator. And it doesn't really tie in with anything. It's just in there because they had more page real estate to work with, and it's also Frank Miller and Dave Mazzucchelli. So as much as I love this, and I love the story, I love the quality of this cover. I love the everything. It's not like if you're really wanting to get into Daredevil and you're wanting to like really catch up on all the storylines, this is not how you would collect Born Again. The Epics collection suffers from a lot of the same problems. The Masterworks at least prelude you like this is a collection of like this time period of comics, and we're gonna have all the issues, like good or bad, whether they're popular or not. This is it. I don't have any physical copies of the Silver Age Marvel Works. I do have digital copies of I think the first 7 volumes of Captain America. Um, I'm slowly making my way through every Captain America solo comic written, and then I'm going to like cherry pick the ones I really like and go from there. Like just so far, I'm going to eventually get Golden Age #1. Then I'm going to get Silver Age volumes 1, 3, 4, and then I'm going to jump to 7. Because Golden Age 1, that's obviously the OG, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. Silver Age 1 has his reappearance in Tales of Suspense. Silver Age Volume 3 has the launch of his or relaunch of his solo series, and it also has the art that is the art that's drawn by Jim Steranko. Volume 4 is important. That's the introduction of the Falcon. 5 and 6, not as good. The issues in those volumes aren't as good, so I'm not going to get physical copies of them. I'll jump right into Volume 7, which has the Jerry Conway run and the first chunk of the Steve Englehart run. Steve Englehart comes out swinging with the other Captain America storyline. With the it's not named in it, but I know his name from other stuff. Is William Burnside and Jack Monroe. And then so that's where I'm at on my continuous read through. But I will also be getting the entirety of Volume 3, the 1998 to 2002 series, with written by Mark Waid and Dan Jurgens, with art by Ron Garney, Alan Kubert, and Dan Jurgens. And then I'm also going to get, I don't know if it's going to end up being Volume 8 or 9 or 9 and 10. But I will be getting physical copies of whatever Silver Age has the Secret Empire and the Nomad storyline. So I know I'm going to be getting that. And then, of course, I'm probably going to end up collecting the entire Ed Brubaker run as well. And then that's probably going to be it, because I have not enjoyed a comic, a Captain America solo comic, since Ed Brubaker left. So that's probably going to be it for that. But I also want to do the same thing with Batman. I'm slowly collecting what I will consider like a definitive Batman reading list. So I already got Year 1, and I have The Man Who Laughs. Next step will be Long Halloween, and then I have to choose whether I want to do Batman Year 3 or Batman and Robin Year 1. I know Batman and Robin Year 1 is the more modern interpretation of it, but it's also written by Mark Waid, and I'm not the biggest Mark Waid fan. Yes, I do like his Captain America, but only in how weird it is. I already have Kingdom Come. I think that's enough Mark Waid for my shelves. But yeah, like I'll have to kind of like ask some hardcore Batman fans, be like, what's the best version of like Dick Grayson's introduction? Because that'll be the next one after Long Halloween. Then after that, I want to get like the Denny O'Neil run. I want to get like a Denny O'Neil omnibus, and then I want to get like what's the I think it's Nightwing Year 1 is considered the best introduction for like Jason Todd. I'm not sure if I buy that. I'll have to check that out digitally at some point. But then from there, I want to get like some of the peak like 80s Batman storylines, like the Colt, Venom, 10 Nights of the Beast, Death in the Family. Probably also have Killing Joke, even though I don't like it. But it is really important. Important enough to be on a recommended reading list. And then from there, we'll collect like Nightfall, uh, Cataclysm, No Man's Land, Bruce Wayne the Fugitive. I'm gonna get like a physical copy of at least the first volume of Batgirl 2000, maybe some like Robin 93. Red Hood is another one that I want. A Hush. Again, I don't like the way Hush ends, but it's important enough. It's definitive enough to where I'd want it. And then after I'm done doing that, I'm gonna jump into either Spider-Man or Daredevil. Will be the next thing on my list to collect. Um, and then I also want to kind of go through X-Men up to a certain point and Avengers up to a certain point. Uh, I actually just want to sit down and read the Kurt Busiek run of Avengers. Because I had a couple of comics of that as a kid. But my point is that sometimes, because of the cultural mythology nature of these characters, we end up creating a definitive version in our head that never really existed. Like, we end up headcanoning a bunch of things. Because it just makes more sense that way. Like, it just... And that's what comics end up doing, too, after a certain point. Like, right now, in modern Batman and Bat Family comics, Cassandra Cain is Batgirl. She's off on her own solo adventure. She's actually getting ready to come back to Gotham City. That was how the last issue ended. And that run has thus far paid a lot of homages and lip service and references to Batgirl 2000. The Kelly Puckett, Damian Scott, and other people, that followed after them, Dan Horrocks, so on and so forth. Like, it's made a lot of references to that. It's also made a lot of references to Robin 1 year later, where Cassandra Cain got brainwashed into being a villain. Even though that wasn't originally how Robin 1 year later was written, the brainwashing thing was a retcon that was made by the same writer, to give him credit, made by the same writer in order to try to fix the mistake. But there's a lot more stuff, references to that than, say, Batgirls from 2021. Or Fear State from, like, what was that, like 2018, 2019? The big, like, Bat Family storyline. But yeah, like, a big thing in current Batman continuity is that Nightfall happened, just not the way it was originally written. So even in comic books, the comic books are treating the prior comic books as, like, yeah, the basic idea of that happened, but the details don't matter. The details aren't a thing. We gotta try to find a way to have all these events happen in a 10 to 15 year time period, because we don't want to age Batman up too much. It's bad enough that he has to be like at a 40 at least by this point. And then we keep making, like, year one Batman younger and younger. Like, Batman year one Batman is like 30. Now, post New 52, year one Batman is like 22. And eventually we're going to get to a point where year one Batman is like 16, because they would rather age year one Batman down than age current continuity Batman up. Man, I was just thinking about how some of the younger heroes in DC Comics are now canonically Zoomers, canonically younger than I am. Like they make a if it's currently 2026 in DC Comics and Tim Drake is like 21, 22, that means he would have been born in like 2002, 2003. Yikes. I don't like thinking about that. Just age the characters up. Who cares? No one is gonna hate Batman for being in his 40s. But I do pose the question, and this is one of those like it's an interesting debate on this end. Where like, how many comics do you have to read to be considered a fan of the comics? How many things or how many versions of the characters do you have to consume in order to be a fan of the character overall? Because like if you only play the Batman Arkham games, you can say that you're a fan of the Batman Arkham games. You can say that you're a fan of Batman and the world as it is presented in the Batman Arkham games. Can't really say you're a fan of the character overall because there's a lot of really important things in the comics that the Arkham games don't really address. Not very many. The Arkham Asylum especially does a really good job of being like, we're basically setting this in continuity. You know, this is just another day in the life of post-crisis, pre-New 52 Batman. Uh, but my thing is that none of that matters because if you like a character, you're going to want to see more of them. Like you're going to want to, like if you're a fan of Spider-Man, it doesn't matter if you got into him through the video games or the movies or the TV shows. If you like Spider-Man those, you're gonna naturally seek out the comics. Difficult as that might be sometimes. Like, it's not impossible, and there are people in the fandom that are willing to like give you tips and guide you through it. Like there's forums and stuff that exist entirely for the sake of uh offering like reading lists to people. So I think that's actually gonna do it for me today. I've been going for about a hour 20. I hit all the points I want to talk about. Um, I still got some time, so I'm gonna just kind of keep talking about some of the discourse here because part of the reason why this blew up was because there's this podcast. I can't remember what the name of this podcast is. They're absolute media shills and they are absolute industry plants. Like I never heard of these guys, but then overnight it's like, oh, they're one of the most successful comic book movie podcasts of all time, and they're getting all these sponsorships from all these like from Marvel Comics and Marvel Unlimited, and it's like, oh, so they're like an industry plant because that's like industry plant behavior, like to have that kind of growth overnight and have like right out the gate episode one that level of setup, like you're either already rich or come from rich parents, or you're a paid influencer. Uh, and they very much came on the side of like, oh, you don't have to read comics, and people who read all the comics they think everything's good. Like, no, they don't. That's such a bizarre, stupid ass take. Like, no one hates modern Spider. No one hates Spider-Man comics more than Spider-Man fans, me included. Like, I love every Spider-Man comic I've ever read that's published before 1990. I even like some of the ones that were posted. I like some of the stuff from the J. Michael Straczynski run. I'm not gonna lie. I like the way he handled Aunt May. I like the way he fixed the marriage before fucking it up again. It wasn't his call. Like that was Joe Quesada. That was Joe Quesada. It's actually why J. Michael Straczynski left the book because he was like, yeah, you hired me to fix the marriage, and now you want to undo it forever. Oh, fuck y'all, I'm out. You can catch me when I start writing Thor. Call me back whenever you need someone to ruin Captain America for the third time in a row. Uh, but yeah, every single clip I've seen of these dipshits, it's been like just the exact opposite of good taste. Like they praise the Amazing Spider-Man 2. That movie is awful. I don't care how fucking good a costume is. I really don't. What works on print does not always work on screen. So having comic accurate costumes, yeah, sometimes it works, but there's a lot of times where like you just can't. You just can't. Sometimes I wish they would at least try, or try a little bit harder. Like Wolverine looks great in Deadpool versus Wolverine, so that kind of proved that there's no real excuse to have him in the black leather, except that X-Men, the first movie, was made in the 2000s, and that's just how everyone in the 2000s dressed in movies. This was coming off the back of Blade and The Matrix and Dracula 2000, where everyone also dresses like that. Yeah, that's right. You got 2 Dracula 2000 references on this live stream. But yeah, like black leather looks good on screen. The spandex does not. Superman was able to pull it off in the 70s, and no one else since then has. They always try to like over design the outfits now. I like the Superman 2025 outfit because it looked more cloth based, like it looked more like a fabric. Whereas like um, Christopher Reeves has looked too much like spandex, and because it was spandex, and Man of Steel, Henry Cavill, it looked more like a bodysuit, like something that only a Hollywood studio would put together. Uh, there's some great comic book accurate costumes that look good on screen. The Deadpool, the Spider Man, Sam Raimi Spider Man especially. Um, Captain America, his the first Avengers outfit, with the helmet and goggles. Like that's not something he wears in the comics a whole lot, but there are comics where he wears something like that. Uh, Especially like in flashback stuff, like modern, like Ed Brubaker, I think put him in that outfit. Right, it's technically Stanley Epting because Epting was the artist for that run, or at least the first chunk of that run. As much of that run as I've read. Uh, so like that is comic accurate for like a specific time period of comics. Uh, but on the flip side, something like Batman is never going to work in live action. You know why? The cowl. The way the cowl is shaped. Not even necessarily the color. The blue does tend to not look as good on screen as the black. But the real pain in the ass is just the way the cowl is. Like comic accurate Batman costume, you have the cape, it's big, it's billowing, it's connected to the shoulder pauldrons, and the shoulder pauldrons are connected to the neck part of the mask, and then the mask goes up over the face and it's tight and has the white eyes that are supposed to be like really expressive, but that's hard to do without CGI. Which is why we didn't have like the white out eyes that moved and express until I think Deadpool was actually the first one to do that. It was Deadpool. Yeah, Deadpool was the first one to do that. Deadpool came out February 2016. And then Civil War did that with Spider-Man as well. But Spider-Man was like, yeah, we're using CGI for it, but it's supposed to be mechanical. Like, it's supposed to be something that actually, like, the suit does. And I like that. I dig that. My main problem with the Homecoming series is the Spider logo is, like, so tiny. I like the not an overly big logo like Insomniac's, but I like the size of the Sam Raimi and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 outfit, the spider logo. But yeah, Batman, like his costume is notoriously really hard to make in live action, and very famously, like for a long time, they tried to have like the comic accurate cape and cowl, if not necessarily comic accurate colors. and it sucked, and everyone hated it. It was hard to work with. It was hell on the actors, and they could only turn like they couldn't turn their head. They had to turn their whole body. The Dark Knight was the first one to actually like figure that out by like making the neck and stuff a different piece and removing like the straps and making it a lot like tighter, a lot and segmented, so it's a lot more flexible, little bit more like fabric, a little more fabric in between the pieces. But then it ended up making everyone's head look kind of like bulby, like like they got pinched here and then their head like inflated because it's really thick up here, and that's how Christian Bale Dark Knight Returns outfit looks, as well as Pattinson's bat suit. Uh, then I think Ben Affleck's they sold by having it be like more fabricy and having like they did it the same way, but they did it using fabric instead of like armor pieces, which is why that suit ended up looking. I don't like the way the suit looks conceptually, but in execution it looks fine. Um, and it is the most accurate comic book costume we've had for Batman, even if it is accurate to like Dark Knight Returns. Um, but they did it by having like the long, like basically a turtleneck, and then having the cowl just be like a piece, and then kind of like folding it in here, so that even though these are like separate pieces, it still like blends. I'm pretty sure that's the way they did it for Ben Affleck. And then of course they had the big chunky armor for the final fight. Uh, some other points. Oh, my whole reason for bringing that up is that Tasm 2 is just incomprehensibly stupid. Like, it's horribly paced, horribly or not necessarily horribly acted. Some of the acting's bad. But it is just so wrong-headed in so many of its decisions that it just... The TikTok has brain rotted so many people into thinking that movies are good because they'll keep seeing the same, like, pretty cool 2 seconds of footage or 2 minutes of footage, as the case may be. It's like, no, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is garbage. It's the worst Spider-Man movie by a mile. Go talking live action Spider-Man movies. I'd go like TASM 2 at the very bottom, and then I'd probably go Far From Home, and then I would probably go. I have a soft spot for Spider-Man 3, so I'd probably go with TASM 1, and then No Way Home. No Way Home, Spider-Man 3, and Homecoming. I kind of have like on the same tier, but I'm speaking as someone who like actually unironically enjoys Spider-Man 3 a lot. Uh, I enjoyed it a lot more than Amazing Spider-Man 1 or 2. Um, and then Spider-Man 1 and then Spider-Man 2 would be my top two. Um, and if I threw the Spider-Verse movies on there, I'd have Into the Spider-Verse, right below Spider-Man 1, and I would have Across the Spider-Verse right below No Way Home. I think Across the Spider-Verse is extremely overrated, and it makes just the entire concept of Peter Parker look like a dumb bitch. Like he is a dumb bitch in every universe apparently. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible way to get introduced to the multiversal Spider-Man stuff, because it tries to treat everything as canon, but then because of its plot, it is being like, yeah, your favorite Spider-Man version, he's a bitch ass motherfucker too. He's a punk. You like Spectacular Spider-Man? He's a punk now. You like Spider-Man the animated series from the '90s? Yeah, good luck. They're all punks now. They're all lame. They're all dumb. Uh, so yeah, I don't like. I actually made a tweet about this that like Across the Spider Verse and the Lego Batman movie have the same exact mistake in that uh they try to pay so much love and so much homage to all aspects and all eras of the character, but then they do it in a such a half-ass ham-fisted way that they actually miss a really important aspect of their respective characters. Like for Spider Verse, it misses the fact that Peter didn't want Uncle Ben to die. The Peters who have had Gwen Stacy's that died don't want Gwen Stacy to die. So why are they on Miles' ass for not wanting his dad to die? If it's doomed, if it's a canon event, then you don't need to pull in these hundreds of Spider-Man from across the multiverse in order to stop this dude. Just be like, hey, you're on your own, kid. Good luck with that. And then just watch him fail. If it's really that predetermined, if it's really that destined, then just watch him fail. You don't have to do anything. Just mind your own damn business. Oh, but Miles is an anomaly. Okay, so you're saying that it's not a multiverse that's connected to everything that's canon? Because there's a lot more Miles Moraleses than just the one in Spider-Verse. There's the one in the Sony games. And guess what? The Sony games are canon to Spider-Verse. Because they tie in with Spider-Verse. Ultimate Spider-Man, the cartoon, also has its own version of Miles Morales. The Ultimate comic books, the 1610. That's where Miles Morales originates from. That's referenced in the Spider Verse movies. Like it's all like Spider Verse treats it as if like all of this is connected and all of this is canon, but then it's like cherry picking stuff. So it's like trying to have its cake and eat it too, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when you actually know about Spider Man's publication history. Uh, Lego Batman makes the mistake of like being of referencing things like the Bat Nipples and the Joel Schumacher movies and the Adam West TV show and the Batman the Animated Series, and it references all this stuff, but then Batman's like, who the fuck is a Robin? What the fuck is a Robin? Oh, well, I've never had a sidekick before. Not in any of my iterations. Like, dude, 99% of your iterations, including half the ones you reference in this movie, have a Robin. Why are you playing dumb? Like, why are you trying to be like, oh, this Batman has never heard of a Robin and he's gonna have to learn the importance of having a Robin? But like, you're Luke Skywalkering your sequel Luke Skywalkering Batman in this, because like the only reason why Batman would have to go through that arc is if you are purposely misunderstanding the things that you're actually trying to reference. If that makes sense. Uh, so that is gonna do it for me. Sorry, I really wanted to avoid Spider-Verse slander, but couldn't help myself on this one. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Next week is the 10-year anniversary of Ruby On, so I'll be reading some of that and talking about some of that, as well as I don't think I'll have any new episodes to talk about because of the Olympics.